What if the worst moment of your life, the one you are desperately trying to escape right now, is actually the last page before everything changes? What if the panic, the confusion, the silence, the closed doors, what if none of that is the ending? What if it is the setup? Stay with me. Because what I am about to share with you in the next few minutes might be the most important thing you hear all year. Intro. There is something that happens right before a breakthrough that nobody warns you about. Nobody puts it on a motivational poster. Nobody makes a highlight reel about it. Nobody stands on a stage and talks about it with excitement, because from the outside, it doesn't look exciting at all. It looks like falling apart. It looks like confusion. Like delay. Like rejection. Like silence from the very doors you've been knocking on for months. Like plans collapsing. Like relationships ending. Like the ground beneath your feet becoming suddenly, terrifyingly unstable. And in the middle of all of that, when you are tired, when you are doubting, when you are asking the universe why is this happening to me, there is a voice. Sometimes it is loud. Sometimes it is a quiet, persistent whisper. And that voice says one word. Panic. This episode is my answer to that voice. This is me looking you directly in the eye, through this screen, across whatever distance separates us, and telling you with everything I have. Don't panic. The best chapter is next. And I am not saying that as a slogan. I am not saying it as empty comfort. I am saying it because history proves it. Philosophy confirms it. And the stories of real human lives, lived in real darkness before real dawn, testify to it again and again and again. Let me show you what I mean. The moment before everything. There is a phenomenon that scientists who study weather patterns have long understood, and that most of us have experienced personally, even if we've never had a name for it. It is called the calm before the storm. But what fewer people talk about, what is equally documented and equally real, is the storm before the calm. The violent, disorienting, seemingly endless turbulence that precedes the stillness. The chaos that comes just before the atmosphere settles into something clear and breathable and new. Nature does not apologize for this process. It does not offer an explanation. The storm does not pause to reassure you that the sunshine is coming. It simply rages, and then, when it has done what it came to do, it passes. And the air afterward? The air afterward is the cleanest air you will ever breathe. Your life works exactly the same way. The turbulence you are in right now, the uncertainty, the loss, the confusion, the feeling that nothing is working and everything is unraveling, this is not punishment. This is not evidence that you are failing. This is not a sign that the universe has forgotten you. This is the storm before the calm. This is what happens right before everything changes. Short story, The Sculptor's Block. There was a sculptor named Adriano who was considered one of the most gifted artists of his generation. He had produced breathtaking work in his 20s, pieces that made galleries stop and collectors weep. He had been celebrated, commissioned, praised. His future felt as bright and certain as anything can feel. And then, nothing. For 2 full years, Adriano could not create. He would stand in front of his materials, the stone, the clay, the tools he had used since childhood, and feel nothing but emptiness. The inspiration that had flowed so effortlessly before was simply gone. Vanished. As if someone had reached into his chest and removed the very thing that made him himself. He panicked. He told himself he was finished. That the talent had dried up. That whatever gift he'd had was on loan and the lender had come to collect. He considered abandoning art entirely. But something kept him in the studio. Not inspiration, he had none. Not confidence, that was long gone. Just a stubborn, quiet, almost irrational refusal to walk away completely. And in that emptiness, in those 2 years of creative silence that felt like death, something was happening that Adriano could not see. He was being emptied of everything that was imitation so that something original could take its place. He was being stripped of the techniques he had borrowed, the styles he had copied, the influences that had shaped him, so that what was purely, authentically, irreducibly his could finally emerge. When the work came back, and it came back like a flood, it was unlike anything he had produced before. It was deeper. More honest. More powerful. Critics who had admired his early work were stunned by what they called a complete artistic transformation. Adriano called it something else. He called it the gift of the empty years. Because without the silence, there would have been no voice. Without the emptiness, there would have been no room for what was meant to come. And here is what I want you to take from Adriano's story. Your silence is not your ending. Your emptiness is not your verdict. It is the studio being prepared for your greatest work. The philosophy of the difficult season. The Stoics had a phrase, per aspera ad astra. Through hardship to the stars. It was not a passive statement. It was not a comforting platitude offered to make suffering feel prettier than it is. It was an honest, unflinching acknowledgement of a fundamental truth about how transformation works. You do not get to the stars by avoiding the difficulty. You get to the stars through it. Seneca, who understood suffering in a deeply personal way, having been exiled, imprisoned, and eventually forced to face his own death, wrote these words to a friend in crisis: "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." And embedded in that statement is a challenge that I want to put directly to you. The most dangerous response to a difficult season is not the difficulty itself. It is the panic. Because panic does something specific and devastating to the human mind. It narrows the field of vision. It collapses time, pulling you out of the present moment and throwing you into a catastrophic future that hasn't happened yet. It makes temporary situations feel permanent. It makes solvable problems feel unsurvivable. Panic is not a truth teller. Panic is a liar dressed in urgent clothing. And one of the highest acts of courage available to a human being, in any season of difficulty, is the refusal to let panic write the narrative of what is happening to you. Short story, The Tea and the Storm. There is a story told about a young monk who came to his teacher during a particularly brutal period of his training. Everything was going wrong. His meditation practice felt hollow. His relationships with the other monks were strained. He had made errors in his duties that had brought him public embarrassment. He felt lost, spiritually, emotionally, entirely. He came to his teacher and said, "I think I am going backwards. I think I am getting worse, not better. What is happening to me?" The teacher said nothing. He simply put a kettle on the fire. The monk waited. The water began to heat. The kettle began to rattle and shake and make noise, more noise than it seemed like it should. The monk grew impatient, confused, slightly irritated. And just as the rattling reached its absolute peak, when the noise and the vibration were almost unbearable, the kettle whistled. The water was ready. The teacher poured the tea, handed it to the monk, and said simply, "The noise is not the problem. The noise is the sign that something is ready." The monk sat with that for a long time. Because he understood, in the way that only a person who has been in a difficult season can understand, that what he had mistaken for deterioration was actually preparation. That the rattling, the shaking, the noise, the discomfort, was not evidence that something was wrong. It was evidence that something was almost ready. You are the kettle. The difficulty is the fire. And the noise you are making right now, the internal rattling, the confusion, the questions, the near overwhelming pressure, is not the sound of failure. It is the sound of something getting ready. Why this always happens before life gives you everything. I want to get specific now. Because I don't want this to feel like spiritual poetry that sounds beautiful but doesn't actually help you navigate Monday morning. I want to explain, practically, honestly, why difficulty so consistently precedes breakthrough. Why this is not a coincidence. Why it is, in fact, almost a law. Reason 1, difficulty removes what doesn't belong. Every season of significant loss, of endings, of things falling away, of doors closing, is life's most efficient editing process. Think about it this way. When a fruit tree is pruned, when the gardener cuts away branches that look perfectly healthy to the untrained eye, it seems destructive. It seems wasteful. An outsider watching might feel genuine distress. But the gardener knows something the outsider doesn't. Those branches, while not diseased, are drawing resources away from the branches that will bear the most fruit. By removing what is merely adequate, what is comfortable but not essential, the tree is free to pour all of its energy into what will produce something extraordinary. The relationships that ended. The job that was taken from you. The plan that collapsed. The version of your life that didn't work out the way you designed it. These were pruning. Not punishment. And what remains after the pruning, what is left standing when the comfortable but non-essential has been cleared away, that is where your fruit will grow. Reason 2, difficulty reveals your actual strength. Here is a truth that comfort will never teach you about yourself. You are stronger than you know. More resilient than you have been given credit for. More capable of navigating uncertainty than your panic would have you believe. But you will never know this from inside a comfortable life. You will only know it from the inside of a difficult one. A muscle does not grow in rest. It grows under resistance. Under weight. Under the pressure that tears the fiber so that it can rebuild stronger than it was before. Your character works the same way. Every time you have moved through a hard season, every time you have continued to show up when showing up cost you something real, you have been building a version of yourself that is not available through any easier path. The difficult season is not interrupting your becoming. It is your becoming. Reason 3, difficulty positions you correctly. Sometimes the reason things fall apart is not because they were bad things. It is because they were good things in the wrong position. A key is a perfectly fine object. But a key in the wrong lock opens nothing. Many of us spend years, sometimes decades, pushing against doors that were never meant to open for us. Not because we lack ability. Not because we lack worth. But because we are at the wrong door. And sometimes, the only way life can redirect you to your actual door, is to close, firmly and finally, the one you've been leaning against. The relationship that ended was not the love you were meant to have, it was the one that made you ready for it. The job that disappeared was not your purpose, it was the preparation for it. The city you had to leave, the plan you had to abandon, the version of the future you had to grieve, none of it was wasted. All of it was positioning. And where you are being positioned, though it may not be visible to you yet, is exactly where you need to be for what is coming next. Short story, the detour that became the destination. There was a woman named Priya who had one plan for her life. She had held it since she was 19 years old. She would finish her degree, join a specific firm, climb a specific ladder, reach a specific position by a specific age. She had mapped it out with the kind of precision that ambitious people bring to the things they want most. And for a while, it worked perfectly. Until the firm she had built her entire plan around collapsed. Overnight. Without warning. Taking her position, her certainty, and a significant portion of her savings with it. Priya was 31 years old and felt like her life was over. She spent 3 months in what she later described as a fog. She went through the motions. She updated her resume. She applied for positions that felt like going backward. She smiled at dinners and fell apart in private. And then, out of complete necessity, not inspiration, she took a consulting project that a friend offered her. Something small. Something she would never have considered before because it didn't fit the plan. It changed everything. That small project led to a collaboration. The collaboration led to a partnership. The partnership became a company. Within 5 years, Priya had built something that made the position she'd lost look, in her own words, like a bus stop on the way to somewhere I didn't know existed. She tells this story now, and she always ends it the same way. She says, The worst day of my life was the day my plan was taken from me. And I know now that it was taken because something was trying to give me something better, and my hands were too full of the old plan to receive it. Your hands may be full of something that needs to be released. Not because it was worthless, but because what is coming requires hands that are open. Closing of Part 1. We have covered powerful ground in this first part. We have looked honestly at what happens in the season before everything changes. We have named the storm, the silence, the empty studio, the rattling kettle. We have understood, through philosophy and through real human stories, why difficulty is not a detour from the life you are meant to live. It is the road. But we are not finished. Let me ask you something. Have you ever read a book, a really good book, and hit a chapter so dark, so tense, so uncomfortable that you almost put it down? The hero is losing. Everything is falling apart. The situation seems completely, utterly, irreversibly hopeless. And then you turn the page. And everything changes. Not because the difficulty wasn't real. It was real. But because the difficulty was never the end of the story. It was the turning point. It was the chapter that made the next one make sense. You are in that chapter right now. And I need you to keep reading. The danger of stopping too soon. There is a story about a gold miner named Darby that has been told and retold for nearly a century, because it carries one of the most important lessons a human being can learn. Darby had heard about gold in the hills. He packed his life, gathered his tools, and went to find his fortune. And for a while, it seemed like the decision of a genius. He struck a vein of gold almost immediately. Rich, promising, extraordinary. He mined it with everything he had. And then, the vein disappeared. Just like that. Gone. As if the earth had swallowed it. Darby kept digging. Days passed. Weeks passed. Nothing. The gold was gone and he was exhausted, and the cost of continuing felt greater than the possibility of reward. So he stopped. He sold his equipment to a junkman for a fraction of what it was worth and went home defeated. The junkman, curious about the mine, called in an engineer to take a look. The engineer examined the shaft and made a calculation that stopped everything. 3 feet. 3 feet from where Darby had stopped digging, the vein picked up again. Richer than before. More gold than Darby had found in all his previous mining combined. 3 feet. Darby had stopped 3 feet from everything he had been digging for. And I want you to sit with that. Really sit with it. Because how many of us have stopped 3 feet from our breakthrough? How many prayers went unanswered for what felt like forever, and we walked away one conversation, one day, one decision before the answer arrived? How many dreams were abandoned 3 feet from the moment they would have become real? The most dangerous moment in any difficult season is not the beginning of the hardship. It is the moment right before the turn. Because that moment, the moment of maximum pressure, maximum doubt, maximum exhaustion, that moment feels indistinguishable from failure. But it is not failure. It is the final test before the door opens. Don't stop digging. What to do in the waiting. Now I want to give you something practical. Something you can use today, not someday, not when conditions improve, not when you feel better. Today. Because one of the greatest mistakes people make in a difficult season is believing that the waiting is passive. That there is nothing to do but endure. That survival is the only available mode. It is not. The waiting is active. The waiting is sacred. And what you do inside the waiting determines everything about who you will be when the next chapter begins. Here is what the waiting is actually for. First, the waiting is for preparation. Every great arrival requires preparation. And the preparation almost always happens in a season that looks, from the outside, like nothing is happening. Think about an actor before opening night. The audience sees the performance, the lights, the applause, the seemingly effortless brilliance. What the audience does not see is the months of rehearsal in empty rooms. The lines learned alone. The blocking practiced over and over in the dark. The invisible, unglamorous, deeply necessary work of becoming ready. Your difficult season is your rehearsal. The version of you that will receive what is coming, the relationship, the opportunity, the breakthrough, the life, that version of you is being built right now. In the waiting. In the difficulty. In the quiet rooms where no one is watching and nothing feels like progress. Use the time. Read what sharpens you. Learn what equips you. Build habits that will serve the next chapter. Have the honest conversations with yourself that comfort would never have forced you to have. The preparation is not separate from the journey. The preparation is the journey. Second, the waiting is for clarity. There is a kind of clarity that only comes from stillness. And most of us spend our entire lives in enough noise and motion that this clarity never gets a chance to land. But a difficult season, one that strips away the distractions, the busyness, the social performances, the comfortable routines, creates conditions for something rare and extraordinarily valuable. Honest self-knowledge. When the noise stops, when the plan collapses and the schedule clears and the thing you were using to define yourself is suddenly gone, you are left with a question that prosperity rarely asks and difficulty always does. Who are you really? What do you actually want? What actually matters to you when everything that doesn't matter has been removed? These are not comfortable questions. But they are the most important questions a human being can answer. And the answers, found in the stillness of a difficult season, become the compass for every decision that follows. Marcus Aurelius wrote from the middle of a life that carried almost unimaginable pressure, wars, political betrayal, personal loss, constant responsibility. And yet his journals, the Meditations, are among the most quietly, powerfully clear documents ever written. Because difficulty had done what comfort could not. It had stripped away everything unnecessary and left only what was true. Let your difficult season give you that. Let it ask you the questions you have been too busy to answer. And then, answer them honestly. Let those answers guide you forward. Third, the waiting is for gratitude. I know how that sounds. Gratitude? In the middle of this? Stay with me. There is a man named Viktor Frankl who survived the Nazi concentration camps. Who lost almost everyone he loved. Who endured conditions that most of us cannot begin to imagine. And who came out the other side with a philosophy that has since changed millions of lives. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." Gratitude, real, honest, eyes-open gratitude, is not the denial of difficulty. It is the decision to look at difficulty and say, I can still find something here that is worth holding on to. Not because the pain isn't real. It is real. But because where attention goes, energy flows. And the person who trains their attention on what remains, on what is still present, still working, still available, still good, that person moves through difficulty with a completely different quality of energy than the person whose attention is entirely consumed by what has been lost. Find one thing today that is still good. Just one. And hold it like the lamp it is, in a season that has felt very dark for very long. Short story, The Farmer and the Rain. There was a farmer who had worked the same land for 40 years. He knew that land the way a man knows the face of someone he loves. Every slope. Every season. Every tendency of the soil. He had poured his life into it and it had provided for him in return. And then came a drought. 3 seasons. No rain. The earth cracked. The crops failed. The neighboring farmers sold their land and moved on. People told him to do the same. He didn't. Every morning, and this is the part of the story I want you to hear, every morning during those 3 dry seasons, the farmer woke up before dawn and walked his fields. Not to plant. There was nothing to plant. Not to harvest. There was nothing to harvest. He walked them to stay connected. To remember what the land was capable of. To refuse, in the most practical, physical way he knew, to let despair become his permanent address. And on a Tuesday morning in the 4th year, he felt something on his face. Rain. And the land, which had been patient, which had been waiting, which had never stopped being what it was underneath the drought, responded with a harvest so abundant that it more than recovered everything the drought had taken. His neighbors, who had sold and moved on, came back to see it. And one of them asked him, "How did you know it would come back?" The farmer thought about it for a long moment. And then he said, "I didn't know. But I knew the land. And I knew that land like this doesn't stop being good just because the rain stops for a while. Know your land. Know what you are made of. Know your capacity. Know the depth of what is in you, not because circumstances are confirming it right now, but because you have seen evidence of it before. Because you have been through difficulty before and come out the other side before. The drought is not permanent. And you are not the drought. You are the land. And land like yours does not stop being good just because the rain has paused. The signs that the next chapter is closer than you think. I want to give you something now that I wish someone had given me during my hardest seasons. A list of signs. Not magical signs. Not mystical signals that require special interpretation. But honest, observable, real indicators that, if you know what to look for, tell you that the turn is coming. Sign 1, things are ending that should have ended long ago. When relationships dissolve, when situations conclude, when doors close that you have been knocking on for years, this can feel like pure loss. But often, what it actually is clearing. Life is creating space. And space, uncomfortable, unfamiliar, unsettling space, is the precondition for something new to enter. If things are ending around you right now, ask yourself honestly, were they supposed to last forever? Were they serving your highest good, or just your comfort? Were they aligned with who you are becoming, or who you used to be? Endings are not always tragedies. Sometimes they are invitations. Sign 2, you are being pushed toward something you've been avoiding. Difficulty has a way of removing our escape routes. The job loss that forces you to finally pursue what you actually love. The relationship ending that forces you to finally confront what you actually need. The move, the disruption, the unexpected turn that removes the comfortable distraction and leaves you face to face with the life you were always meant to build. If difficulty is pushing you toward something you've been avoiding, pay close attention. That direction is not accidental. Sign 3, you are growing in ways that comfort never required. Patience you didn't know you had. Empathy that came from your own suffering. Strength that only revealed itself under pressure. Perspective that could only have been earned through loss. If you are becoming someone you could not have become in easier circumstances, the difficult season is working. You are not falling behind. You are being built. Sign 4, small things are beginning to shift. Before a breakthrough arrives fully, it sends signals. Small ones. Easy to miss if you're not paying attention. An unexpected conversation. A door that opens slightly, not all the way, just enough to let in a little light. An opportunity that seems minor but feels significant. A shift in your own energy, a morning where the weight feels fractionally lighter than the morning before. Do not dismiss these signals. They are not coincidences. They are the story beginning to turn. Watch for them. Acknowledge them. Let them remind you that stillness is not the same as stagnation. Short story, the chrysalis. Most people know that a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. But most people don't know what happens inside the chrysalis. It is not a gentle, gradual, organized process of transformation. What actually happens inside that shell is something far more dramatic and far more instructive. The caterpillar, quite literally, dissolves. Its body breaks down almost entirely into what scientists call imaginal cells, undifferentiated biological material that holds the blueprint for what the creature will become. In the middle of the process, if you were to open the material of the old one, The butterfly is being assembled from what the caterpillar was willing to give up. And here is what I want you to understand. If you are in the chrysalis right now, if you feel dissolved, unrecognizable to yourself, caught between who you were and who you are becoming, you are not failing. You are transforming. And the form you will take when you emerge, the life, the clarity, the capacity, the version of yourself that is being assembled from everything this season has asked you to give up, will be more extraordinary than anything the old form could have produced. Don't open the chrysalis too soon. Trust the process that you cannot see. Stepping into the next chapter. So how do you step into the next chapter when it finally arrives? Not with desperation. Not with the frantic, grasping energy of someone who has been waiting too long and is afraid it might be taken away. With readiness. Quiet, grounded, unshakable readiness. The Stoics spoke of a concept called eudaimonia, often translated as happiness, but more accurately understood as flourishing. The full, rich, deeply aligned expression of a human life lived in accordance with its highest nature. Eudaimonia is not something that happens to you. It is something you step into, deliberately, consciously, with the full weight of everything you have learned and survived and become. The next chapter is not going to hand you everything on a plate and ask nothing of you in return. It is going to require the version of you that this season has been building. The version who knows what they want because difficulty forced the question. The version who knows their own strength because hardship revealed it. The version who has learned, at significant cost, what they will no longer settle for and what they will no longer give away. That version of you, the one being forged right now in the fire of this difficult season, is exactly who the next chapter needs. And the next chapter is closer than you think. A final word, don't panic. I want to come back to where we started. Don't panic. Not because there is nothing hard about what you are facing. There is. Not because the difficulty isn't real. It is real. Not because the waiting isn't painful. It is painful. But because panic is the only response that actually guarantees the breakthrough doesn't come. Panic makes you stop 3 feet from the gold. Panic makes you sell the land before the rain. Panic makes you open the chrysalis before the butterfly is ready. Panic makes you put down the book 1 page before everything changes. The Stoics did not practice panic. They practiced presence. The deliberate, disciplined, courageous choice to remain in the current moment, not catastrophizing the future, not drowning in the past, but fully, faithfully present to what is available right now. What is available right now is this. Your breath. Your mind. Your ability to choose your next thought and your next action. The small, real, entirely yours opportunity to do one thing today that is aligned with who you are becoming. That is enough. That is more than enough. Because every great life, every story of transformation, of breakthrough, of a human being stepping into everything they were meant to be, started with someone in exactly your position making exactly that choice. One breath. One step. One faithful, unpanicked decision to keep going. The best chapter is next. It has always been next. And you, with everything this season has given you, with everything it has cost you, with everything it has built inside you that you cannot yet fully see, you are ready for it. Turn the page. Call to action, subscribe to the Stoic Path. Before I let you go, I need to ask you something. If this conversation reached something real inside of you today, if something in part 1 or part 2 made you pause, made you think, made you feel seen in the middle of a season that has felt very lonely, then I want you to do one thing. Subscribe to the Stoic Path. Right now. Before the feeling fades. Before the next distraction arrives. Before you tell yourself you'll do it later. Do it now. Because this is what we do here. Every single week. We come to this space and we have the conversations that most people are too comfortable, or too uncomfortable, to have. We go deep. We go honest. We bring the ancient wisdom of the Stoics into the real, messy, beautiful, difficult landscape of actual human lives. And we do it together. That is the Stoic path. And if you found your way here today, it was not by accident. Subscribe. Share. Because this community is not just a channel. It is a conversation. And your voice belongs in it. This is the Stoic path. Don't panic. The best chapter is next. And I will see you in it.